Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, give me 1 second here. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaimadirayet Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bandreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and love and devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the 6th day of January 2025 in San Diego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're in Canto 7, The Science of God, Chapter 15, Instructions for Civilized Human Beings, text number 74. Dharmas te grihamedhiyo varnitaha papanashanaha gṛhastho yena padavim andasa nyasinam yat dharmaste grihamedhiyo varnitak papanashanaha gṛhastho yena padavim andasa nyasinam yat dharmaste grihamedhiyo varnitak papanashanaha gṛhastho yena padavim andasa nyasinam yat dharmaste grihamedhiyo varnitak papanashanaha gṛhastho yena padavim andasa nyasinam yat. Dharmaste grihamedhiyo varnitak papanashanaha gṛhastho yena padavim andasa nyasinam yat. Dharmaste grihamedhiyo varnitak papanashanaha gṛhastho yena padavim andasa nyasinam yat. Dharmaste grihamedhiyo varnitak papanashanaha gṛhastho yena padavim andasa nyasinam yat. Dharmaste grihamedhiyo varnitak papanashanaha gṛhastho yena padavim andasa nyasinam yat. Go ahead, Chad. Dharmaste grihamedhiyo varnitak papanashanaha gṛhastho yena padavim andasa nyasinam yat. Anyone online ready to chant?
Dharmaste grihamedhiyo
Dharmaste grihamedhiyo
varnita papanashanaha
varnita papanashanaha
gṛhastho yena padavim
gṛhastho yena padavim
anjasanyasinam yat.
Anjasanyasinam yat.
Dharmaste grihamediyo.
Dharmaste gṛhasthas.
Varnita papanashana.
Varnita papanashanaha.
Gṛhastho jena padabhim.
Gṛhastho yena padavim.
Anjasa nashinam yat.
Anjasanyasinam yat. Dharma, that religious process. Te, to you. Grihamediyaha, although attached to household life. Varnitaha, explained by me. Papanashanaha, the destruction of sinful reactions. Gṛhastha, a person in household life. Yena, by which. Padavim, the position. Anjasa, very easily. Nyasinam, of those in the renounced order of life. Iyat, can obtain. Translation. The process of chanting the holy name of the Lord is so powerful that by this chanting, even householders, gṛhasthas, can very easily gain the ultimate result achieved by persons in the renounced order. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, I have now explained to you that process of religion. Please repeat. The process of chanting the holy name of the Lord is so powerful that by this chanting, even householders can very easily gain the ultimate result achieved by persons in the renounced order. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, I have now explained to you that process of religion. Purport. This is confirmation of the Krishna consciousness movement. Anyone who takes part in this movement, regardless of what he is, can gain the topmost result achieved by a perfect sannyasi, namely Brahma Gyan, spiritual knowledge. Even more important, he can advance in devotional service. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira thought that because he was a gṛhastha, there was no hope of his being liberated. And therefore he asked Narada Muni how he could get out of material entanglement. But Narada Muni, citing a practical example from his own life, established that by associating with devotees and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, any man in any condition of life can achieve the highest perfection without a doubt. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, I'm reminded by this whole section that we've been reading of another part of the Bhagavatam, which some of you may be familiar with. The beginning of the 3rd chapter, I believe, in the 2nd canto. There's a whole list of demigods you can worship in order to get specific benedictions. If you want a good wife, worship Uma, I think. If you want good health, worship Surya. If you want a strong sex life, worship Indra, like that. There's a big list, maybe 20, 25. But then at the end, there's a verse that is very well known. Akama sarvakamo va moksha kama hudara di tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. That whether you're free of material desire, you're an accomplished sannyasi, or sarvakamova, you're full of all kinds of lusty desires, or you want liberation, moksha kama. It's interesting that it has the phrase moksha kama. That reminds me of the 2nd verse of Bhagavatam. That the desire for one's own liberation is actually a material desire. And just working for that liberation and practicing all kind of processes, Ashtanga yoga, or like Mayavad, whatever, is a cheating religion. Dharma projita kaita votra. Here in this Bhagavatam, all the cheating religions are are kicked out. They're not just rejected, they're vociferously and energetically kicked out. And Prabhupada points out in one lecture that Sridhar Swami, the original commentator on the Bhagavatam, has distinctly said that even the desire for moksha, for oneself, is ultimately a material desire. So, moksha kama udaradi. So this verse says, even if you want moksha, then here's what you should do. Tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. You should practice devotional service intensely. Bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Devotion to who? The Supreme Person, not any demigod. And in that purport, there's a wonderful description of who is really akama. Now, akama is a noun. So who is anakama? And basically the definition is bhajaniya padama purusha sukha matra swasukatvam. Some of you may have heard me share this line from the Sandarbhas that Prabhupada quotes in the purport. And it's a very nice compressed version of Anyabhilashada Shunyam. Most of you are familiar with that verse. This is a verse near the beginning of the Nectar of Devotion that defines our object, what the goal is, what pure devotional service is. So just quickly going through that, the first thing is Anyabhilashada Shunyam, devoid of all other desires. And he'll say, except, and he'll decide what your one desire should be. Jnana karma jnavatam. Then he gives a summary of what those desires may be. Jnana means liberation. Desire through speculation and meditation to understand not this, not this, not this, not this. Oh, not any of this. I'll just merge into Brahman. That's basically the program. So, and then jnana karma, all kinds of fruit of desires, ordinary karmic, what we call the karmis, what everyone's after. Or even siddhi. Jnana, karma, adi, anavatam. Anadi means etc., whatever you may come up with, which includes yogic siddhis. Notice the word avatam, very important word. It means covered. Your devotion is covered by that. It's obscured, you see. It's not going directly to Krishna. There's a mediation there. Even if you pray to Krishna for something material, that's auspicious. But it's like you're in the category of sukriti, right? It's like if someone is, what is it? Chaturvadha bhajante mam jana sukritanocha arto jigyasur artati jnani cha bharatarshaba. Lord Krishna gives this example. Artarti. Artarti is someone who's after money, like Dhruva. Not necessarily someone who just needs money to pay the rent. That's in the arta. There's arta and artarti. The artos are those who are suffering some distress. This is a common reason why someone approaches God. Artarti is someone who's after money, like Dhruva. Dhruva didn't need to pay the rent. Dhruva wanted wealth so that he would have more wealth than his father and even the greater kingdom than Brahma. That's the artartis, those who are like that. Jnanis, those who are after knowledge, like that. So these can all be very pious when they approach Krishna for it. That's the whole idea. And because they're sukriti, they're pious, and so that material motivation is eventually purified, as it was with Dhruva very spectacularly. You see, because he met Narada, Narada actually instructed him in the process by which he'll get the kingdom, and it included chanting the holy name, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and all these other austerities, So he, of course, became purified of that desire. Smaman Kratarta Smivadang Liachi. I don't want anything else now that I've got your darshan. Vishnu appeared before him, like that. So, back to our little phrase. So Jiva Goswami summarizes that verse, because that's what it's not. Now what is it? Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam Bhaktaruttama. Anukulyena, this word is very important, favorably. It doesn't just mean being Krishna conscious. Prabhupada points out that Kamsa was very Krishna conscious. He couldn't forget Krishna. Day and night, he couldn't sleep hardly. Remember? He was afraid he was going to be killed by him. So he wanted to kill Krishna, right? Very Krishna conscious, but it's not bhakti. The best he can do is merge into the existence of the Lord or something like that. So that's why the anukulya, favorably thinking of Krishna, favorably working for Krishna, whatever you do. That's pure devotion. Taking your pleasure in Krishna's pleasure. That's the whole idea. And that's what this little phrase means. Padama Purusha, Bhajaniya Padama Purusha, the worshipable Supreme Person, none other than Krishna. Sukha Matra, only the happiness of that Supreme Person. Padama Purusha, Sukha Matra, Swasukhatvam, is your happiness. Yesterday night, Balaram told the story of the Krishna wanting the dust of his devotees' feet in order to cure his headache, right? A famous story. And our guest, she's been coming since I've been here, who had say, oh, that has an ick factor. Ick, wasn't it? Like, anyway, we won't go into that. But, so what is that? That's exactly the personification of this attitude. I'm not worrying about, I may go to hell, you know, but if Krishna can be cured of his headache, he can have the dust of my feet or whatever, you know. That's the epitome of devotion, and it's exemplified by the gopis. They were giving up everything, right? They gave up their good name, they gave up their family, they gave up all their, you know, wife's dharma, just so, because Krishna called them with the flute. Oh, Krishna wants us to serve him, you know, he's calling us with the flute, we'll go out there. Then, of course, when he came out, he teased them, you know. Oh, you come out, it's very nice. But it's dangerous out here, it's very bad. Adultery is very bad, you can't go to heaven, you know. So go back to your husband like that, you know. So they, unlike the Brahmins' wives, because the Brahmins' wives weren't, you know, when I worked on the Bhagavatam, I noticed this. The very same exact words that Krishna uttered to the gopis, because that was first, and then the Brahmins' wives are later. The Brahmins' wives said the same thing. Why are you speaking such, you should not speak such cruel words to us. You know, the same exact word. But then the rest of the verse is different. So anyway, the Brahmins' wives went back. You know, they're very advanced, but not as advanced as the gopis. They went back because Krishna said, oh, you have to help your husband perform the sacrifices like that, which is standard, you know. Said, oh, okay. But the gopis wouldn't go back. They said, we can't go back now. You know, we're just going to stay out here, and whatever tulsi leaves fall from your feet, we'll worship those, you know. Like. So, of course, Krishna agreed, and they had the rasa dance. So that attitude of the gopis is exemplary. It means that taking any risk or ensuring any difficulty, if that's what it takes to please Krishna, I get this explicit order, then I'm going to do it. And it was personified in Prabhupada. That's what was so nice, you know, that he transferred, that yes, Prabhupada was ready to sacrifice anything. He had the determination, and it's such a nice thing. Determination is determination to do what? Determination can be in different modes of nature. Those who are determined to become great athletes, you know, they try, and most of them don't. And then a few become at Olympic level, and you know, some of them win. But you can imagine the determination to really punish the body and work, you know, and do all these things, and you know, and for what? For the gold medal, for name and fame, you know, material. So this determination to achieve the perfection of life, to go back to Godhead, to end all birth, old age, disease, and death, those have a material tint to them, you see? But they serve as good impetuses for becoming serious about devotional service. That's why Krishna says, you know, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, dukkha, dosha, and darshanam. These are some of the elements, that's one of the elements of knowledge in the beginning of the 13th chapter that we need in order to practice devotion. Of course, the most essential one is uninterrupted, unalloyed devotion to me. That's also in the list. If that's not in the list, then it's ultimately material. But that understanding of the actual mission of life, that's the whole point. Once you have great faith in the mission of life, then you have to become determined to follow the steps that'll get you to the goal, to that goal. That's where determination comes in. Otherwise, if you don't know that goal or don't accept that goal, have no access to anyone who will teach you that goal, then you'll accept the material goal. Then your goal will be in one of the modes of nature. I'm determined to become the healthiest person in the world. I'm determined to live to 100. All right, you know. And I mean, every day, because they know I'm old, so I get things from the WebMD. So many ways, you know, when your knees go, here's what you do, you know, and all things having to do with old age, you know. So I said, okay, I'm determined to follow this regimen and these pills and this diet so that I can live to 100, you know, healthy life. That's totally material, obviously bodily concept. So determination goes one way or another. When you lose your determination, then you're deep in the mode of ignorance. It's just like this thing in China now. The young people are finding it so hard to find jobs. There aren't enough jobs, you know. So they have this phrase, I forget the Chinese, but it's like, let it rot. And they just give, you know, they stay at home in their parents, even though they're 21, 22, you know, they're living at home, living off their parents, just sleeping. They're just resting, sleeping. They're not endeavoring for anything because they've seen how difficult it is to achieve material success. So it's also difficult to achieve spiritual success. But just see the value of it compared to these material goals. The material goals are in the realm of Maya. It's her trick. You see, it's her duty to keep you bewildered here until you're ready to do what Narada did. And he was fortunate, you know, and Krishna arranged that these realized devotees would spend the Chaturmasya months at his mother's home, you know. And so that he, as a young boy, he was performing services for them, you know, serving them prasadam and washing their clothes and all these things. And of course, as explained, he got to taste the prasadam. And that's the potency of Maha prasadam. We used to say, oh, this is probably from this, you know, this little orange peel that's now empty. He ate from all to suck that. Not an ick factor, it's an ecstasy factor. You got to be ecstasy and ecstasy. So anyway, sorry to make that stupid pun. But so he took the prasadam at their permission, took permission. They said, well, Maha prasadam. And he was performing services. Now, you remember the verse, I think the last verse talked about Shushushaya? You remember that? Now, Shushushaya, of course, is defined, and probably defined as rendering service. But the root of that word is shushusha, which means to hear with ardent attention. Submissive all reception, the Prabhupada said. And that's the key thing. He heard them glorifying the Lord. So not only did he do the laundry, and he washed the dishes, and he took prasadam, but he heard. That is the first and most important service we do for the spiritual master. To listen to that's why Prabhupada was so adamant about these classes, and about attendance in the classes. You know, you hear sometimes he's giving it, where is so-and-so, where is so-and-so? You know, and if they didn't, and someone would say in the background, I would say, and said, oh, okay, you know, they're out on some mission that he gave them, you know. But otherwise, that class was so important. Not only just to read, but also to hear. Both have to be there. So that was, and that is our main service that we perform, is hearing these, you know, these books that Srila Prabhupada lists, reading them, which is a form of hearing, or actually hearing class. So what was the result? This boy who was cursed, you know, he had been a Gandharva, but he was glorifying the demigods instead of glorifying Krishna. It was a great offense, so he was cursed to become a Shudra. So he was born in that home, you know, with his mother. And by Krishna's arrangement or by fortune or whatever, he had this association, and he took full advantage of it. And therefore, now what happened then? You may recall, his mother died from a snake bite. So he was left alone. Now at his age, you get the sense that he's maybe 5, 6 years old maximum, you know. What would an ordinary person do, you know, a kid do? Try to find some uncle or aunt, you know, take shelter of, right? But he didn't. You remember what he did? He just started wandering. And he was chanting Hare Krishna, thinking of Krishna, going. Meditating, sit down and meditate on Krishna, right? But then, at one point, he couldn't see Krishna anymore. And he heard, Krishna said, oh, you're not going to be able to see me anymore this lifetime. Because I've disappeared to increase your hankering for me, you know. So in his next birth, he became the son of Brahma, Narada Muni. But what a turnaround, right? And he was offending Gandharva, singing unauthorized songs, at the time of glorifying the Lord, he's glorifying the demigods. He got cursed. Now, if he hadn't been, entered that particular household, then his fate would have been completely different. But he was blessed with the association, and he took advantage of it. And this is really what so much of our spiritual life is, to take advantages of all the blessings we've been given. And the point is, as Prabhupada makes the point in this process of chanting the holy name, I think which will come in next verse, is the process for this age. You see, practically speaking, other processes we try to perform are not going to work, even if they're bhakti processes. But especially in this age, Lord Chaitanya, who's Krishna himself, has provided this holy name. And I like to cite this verse, because this also makes us try to understand how fortunate we are. This is, and to take advantage of that good fortune. This verse comes one or two verses. I think it's maybe the next verse or two verses after the famous verse, Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishnam Sango Pangasta Parshadam Yagyar Sankitana Praya Yachanti Sumedasha. This is a very important verse in the Bhagavatam, defining the avatar for the age, Lord Chaitanya. He's Krishna Varnam. This means two things. It's worth memorizing this verse. Krishna Varnam means that he's chanting the two syllables, Krishna, 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 always. That's the way I first learned it. And then also, Varna means Varna, like Varnashram. He's in the Krishna Varna, means he's in the category of Krishna. He's Krishna himself. But it's Trisha Akrishnam. Now it's interesting that, this can be is Trisha Krishnam. It could be, his complexion is Krishna, dark. No. All the commentators, no, it means Trisha Akrishnam. You have to know by context whether that R is in there, because it merges. So yes, his complexion is not blackish, it's golden. And Sa Anga Upanga Astra Parshadam. And he doesn't come alone, but he comes with his angas. Angas are your limbs. Those are the most immediate associates, like the rest of the members of the Panchatattva, But the upa angas, those are a little less intimate, and we read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he had so many associates, and especially in Navadvip, who were helping him. There's a whole list of wonderful associates. So they're also there. And Parshada means his associates who were traveling, preaching with him and doing things. So Yagyar Sankatana Prayai, who can tell me what that line means? Vijamani? Yagyar? Sankirtana, what is the Prayai? Chiefly. He's worshipped chiefly by the congregational chanting of the holy name. Yajanti Hisumedasa, those who are intelligent will worship him in that way, Yajanti. You see? So we may not have such a high IQ, but we're the most intelligent if we take to this process. We accept it. And we try to advance in this process as Prabhupada has given it to us. So this this verse, Dharma, Prabhupada gives the Dharma as that religious process. So although attached to household life, in other words, in the Bhagavatam we find again and again the description of materialistic household life as the chief reason why people remain ignorant in this world and suffer. From this grihamedi mentality, what is the pleasure there? Again, we turn to Prahlad, source of so much knowledge. Near the end of his prayers, how's it go? Yan maitunadi grihamedi sukham hi tucham kandu yanena kadayodeva dukkha dukkam kandu divamana kandu yanena kadayodeva dukkha dukkam tripyanti nehe kripana bahudukka bhaja kandu divamana sijam vishaheta dira. I don't know, that's a famous verse. So he's condemning, as we find throughout the Bhagavatam. Rishabdev also has a very important verse about that. Yan maitunadi. So what is the pleasure? Sex life, etc. The children come, as ato griha kshetra sutta apta vittar. And Rishabdev describes the entanglement. If you want to have a household, well, you have to have a house. That's the first thing. If you want to be a brahmachari, you don't need your own house. You may need a little corner of a room, some of it, but you don't need it. So, Ata Griha Kshetra. Kshetra is field, often literally a field in those days. You have to have something, where you can be a farmer and cultivate food and raise some cows. But Kshetra in general means your source of livelihood. It can be a job. So, Griha, Kshetra, and then comes children, of course, which if you're a decent person, you have a responsibility to raise them, educate them, and like that. And Apta, you don't just marry a wife, you marry her whole family. And especially in India, don't they often have the extended family living with you? So that's the whole, in the Yiddish term, immortal term, you don't have to remember it. Mashpucha. The whole mashpucha. The aunts, the uncles, the cousins, everyone. And what do you need to maintain it all? Mane, vittai. So he's describing the whole entanglement. Griha, Kshetra, Sutta, Apta, Vittai. Janas yamoho yamaham mameti. And all of this serves to bewilder the person who's thus entangled with the false ego. Aham mameti, I and my. I am the husband of this wife. I am the father of this child. I am the breadwinner. I am the whatever owner of this land, whatever it may be. That's all I and my. That's the essence of false ego. So, but the process of devotional service centered on chanting, you can have a household that's not grihamedi, but it's gṛhastha, ashram. Gṛhastha means gṛhastha ashram. It's a shelter for practicing devotional service and of course it means it's temporary. You're enjoying not to stay there actually beyond 50 years old. We haven't really been able to do that in ISKCON very much. But 25 years, and then by that time you leave, you'll have so many kids, and your eldest son will be 24, whatever. And then if you leave, you take vanaprastha, you go traveling, but finally, okay, now it's time to detach, no physical contact. And you send the wife back home, she's taken care of by the elder son or sons. And you're off in sannyas, simply focusing on it. That's the program Prabhupada outlined. We haven't been able to follow it exactly that way. But the whole idea is that there has to be that determination to become free from the entanglements of this world, which is all attachments, you see. And some of it is very subtle, name and fame, prestige. That can be a very strong attachment. It's all based on the mode of passion, false ego. So here Prabhupada is saying that the process of chanting the holy name of the Lord is so powerful that by this chanting, even householders, gṛhasthas, can be very easily gain the ultimate result achieved by persons in the renounced order. So he's telling Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, because he's going to be a householder until the end there. When Krishna finally leaves, then all four of them, they just take sannyas. They just start walking north. I don't know if they took the cloth on. They're just walking north, means they're going into the Himalayas. And you know who's following them? The wives. Draupadi is also there. And I think there's one other. Kunti goes also. They're just committing suicide, basically by walking north into the Himalayas. They're not worried about warm clothes and what they're going to eat. That was their renunciation at the end there, after Krishna left. So, but another thing I wanted to emphasize, I don't know if I mentioned it, this shushushaya, it means service, but it also focuses on the service of hearing. And that's there. If you go back to the first canto and you get more details about Narada Muni's account of how he became Narada Muni, he tells Vyasadeva the story there. He described how I became attached to hearing about Krishna from them. And that's the best attachment you can have. Madness to hear. Lord Chaitanya showed, he would hear all night. They would go all night just hearing and chanting about Krishna and Kirtan, And there's never any point of, not saturation, but satiation. It's satiation. It's satiation. Okay, I had my third ice cream cone, and I can't even think of ice cream anymore. That's satiation. But that doesn't work, because then it comes back even stronger with material desires. That's the whole point. Right in the third chapter, at the end of the third chapter, such an important section. Arjuna asks, This is not such a famous verse, but it sets it all up. Atta kena payuktoyam papam charati purusha anichan napivarshnaya baladivini yojita. What is it? Why? Kena. Prabhupada talking about this why version. We learned that why is there anything is not the proper thing. Why am I suffering? You remember how Sanatana Goswami asked why? If I don't know who I am or why I'm suffering, then what's the use of all my erudition? He's surrendering to Lord Chaitanya. So please enlighten me about that. You know, he's taking that role. So that why is there, and Arjuna asks, Atta kena, kena is why. Atta kena, or how or why. Atta kena prayuktoyam papam charati purusha. Why is it that sometimes we act sinfully, even against our understanding? Anichan, as if by force, abhivarshan, as if we're pushed by force to do something that we shouldn't do. Now this is the perfect description, those who are modern, you know, of addiction. You know, there's no question. You've been a smoker for 30 years and you've felt the horrible effect of it. But still, I see these old guys, on my walk, they're sitting on some bench or something, smoking a cigarette. And it's horrible. I mean, I was blessed to not get deep into the addictions of the 60s, which was, especially LSD in the mid-60s, but then later on it became methamphetamine and cocaine and all of these horrible things, but some of my friends did, and they became dysfunctional. It's horrible. I remember one time, I don't know, some of you may know this story. I became friends because I used to go to Latra all the time, and there's a wonderful devotee named Adi Karta. He's British originally, and he had several sons. I don't know if he had a daughter or not. And his wife was a great cook. They would always invite me over for lunch, and everything. So he had a son. I forget his name right now, but he grew up in the Gurukul, right? And at a certain age, the kids are very mischievous, So in the Gurukul in Mayapur, all kinds of pilgrims would come to Mayapur. Just like in Vrindavan, you'll see sometimes yogis, full yogis, and Mayavadis and everything. So I don't know if they had any Mayavadis come there, but they had yogis. And he's like a 7-year-old or something, and he's mischievous. They'd run around. So he saw this guy in full yogi dress, So he went up to him and he pulled his dhoti a little bit and ran away, And so he looked sternly at him, said, but just a kid, okay. But then he did it again, And so this yogi performed, he uttered some curse or something. Now, nothing happened to the kid right away, but eventually he got into drinking. He wasn't alone. There's some of the Gurukul kids did. I don't know if they did it in Mayapur or not, but eventually, they got into drinking. So this kid had an alcoholism problem. So Adi Karta sent him over here so he could get my association or something, So he came and everything, and we talked. But he also wanted to go to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And there was there's one up the street. I don't know if it's still there. In one of those churches, they have it, So anyway, he was going up there, and then one day he brought down a friend who he'd made up there, an older guy, maybe 40 years old. Forget his name now. And he was a serious alcoholic, but he got into it as also a cocaine addict, But he was interested in Krishna consciousness somehow, so he would sit in my classes, and he liked my classes. But he couldn't stay in the class. He'd go stay in 10 minutes, and he'd have to get up and walk around out there and come back. He was so restless from the cocaine, his mind couldn't be at peace, And eventually, he couldn't stay. We had to make sure he left. I'm not going to go into details, but he was disturbance. He appeared in my life about 6 months ago. We're talking about 10 years or 15 years ago this happened. He came back, and someone told him where I lived, so he knocked on the door, he'd ring the bell, and here he is. And I said, "Oh, Hare Krishna," forget his name now. And so what's up? And he was restless as usual. I can't find my car. He was so spaced out. He parked his car nearby here. Now he can't find it. So I don't know how I can help you, So after a while he left. Eventually he found his car. But it's just so destructive, of the brain. You become dysfunctional. And what would get someone to do that, knowing that this is what happens? And it's just bad association. Bad association. You just throw the caution to the wind, and you take some drug, and then you get hooked, and it's horrible. So this is atakena prayuktoyam. So what's the cause? Kama. It's powerful desire. Kama, Lord, ordinarily means sex desire, but it means not only that, but any other powerful desire that grabs you and you become obsessed with. You see. So that is what we're fighting against. And the best way to and I just love this word, sublimate, which is a psychological word, and it's actually used like that, to sublimate these lower desires to religious purposes, is sublimate all our material desires, is to engage the senses and the mind always in the service of Krishna. That's what Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam, Bhakti Ruchate, that's the definition of bhakti. And so that's what is the perfect process. And the the greatest way to do that for anyone coming from anywhere is to chant the holy name, especially in Sankirtan, to engage the whole body, the dancing and the playing of musical instruments and that attraction, and that's open. That's the dharma of the age. Therefore, as I was beginning, this verse that comes after Krishna Varnam is about the glories of this Kali Yuga, not any Kali Yuga, but this one. Kaling sabhajayan dhyarya guna gyasara bhaginaha yatra sankirtanenaiva sarva svarto bilabhyate. Now let's begin with the last line, because this word svarta keeps coming up again and again. Sva arta means the goal of the soul, the ultimate goal of life. Again, we turn to Prahlad, this famous verse to his father. Nate vidu svarta katimi vishnum. He's just describing the previous verse, materialistic householders, And he said, those material householders absorbed in, as I described, they don't know the ultimate goal of their life. They don't know that the ultimate goal of their life is Vishnu, is Krishna, the spiritual world and everything, So what do? The word arta comes again. They're always absorbed in these external desires, which are impossible to fulfill, probably because he quotes this phrase, he picked up in his education some of these sayings from England. Hope against hope. In other words, you're hoping, but it's such a long shot that you'll never really succeed, but still you're clinging to it. That you'll be happy by material accumulation, by getting this, getting that, getting this, winning this woman's attention, or whatever it may be. It's all material. There's a whole list. So, durashaya bahirarta, external desires, not the desire of the soul. You see? And then you're encouraging those by other blind people, beginning with your parents. They don't know either. And then your first grade, second grade, all the teachers, You're not getting taught by self-realized souls. So this is andaya tandaya. Who knows what that phrase means? Come on, Ram. Andaya tandaya? Blind? Leading the blind. Yeah. So those who are blind, they're leading you, and everyone remains bound up. The teachers and the students all remain bound up by the modes of nature. So anyway, that's the condition of 99.99% of the people. They're misguided, they have misconceptions, they're moved by their material desires, they become addicted, maybe not to a drug so powerfully, but whatever they enjoy, that's a kind of addiction. If you enjoy it once, you want to enjoy it again and again and again. You die with that strong desire in your mind, and then the next birth you're brought back. This is we've been doing this for millions of births. So we want to become addicted to Krishna. The famous, I don't know if this is a very instructive anecdote of Prabhupada's. As you probably all know, Prabhupada was able to go to England in 1968 because Samarasundar and they had met the Beatles, especially George Harrison, and it was before he had the manor, but John Lennon, he let them stay at his place, as long as all these devotees do some work for me, so they were busy renovating the place or something. But Prabhupada was there. So there's a point where he was with Yoko and John, they had invited him to their nice room to hear from him. And on the wall was a picture of them, obviously on some drug, you know, and they were heroin addicts, actually, as I understand. So anyway, it came to a point where John asked, well, how do we recognize who is the guru, who's the genuine guru, you know? I'm sorry, I'm going over time. And probably because he understood they were addicts, you know, not just from the picture, but he'd been told, you know. You find that person who's most addicted to Krishna, and he's a competent guru who's really addicted to Krishna. And that's actually what happens, you know, is that Lord Chaitanya, he couldn't stop hearing about Krishna. He would go on and on and on all night, you know, and there's no satiation point. You know, eventually you have to take rest and do something else, you know. But that addiction is the perfect sublimation of material addiction. And this is the most practical way to do it in this age, is beginning by chanting the holy name. You get a taste from minute one, if you're really open to it. You know, you're hearing, you're dancing, you're taking part, and you get a taste. And then you come back to the Sunday feast the next week also, you know, and eventually, you know, you'll get books. And so that's the whole idea here. And that's why even the gṛhasthas, you know, but to speak of the gṛhāmedis, they also so powerful, but by this chanting, that even householders can very easily gain the ultimate result achieved by persons in the renounced order. So that's why we're able to do it, because we may be so disqualified, but somehow or other we got swept up in the kirtan, and that's still the reason and the way in which this movement grows. People get the books, they come to the temple, they get chanting, they get more taste for reading the books. Well, what was that? I really got a high from that. What's that all about? You know, but that intelligence has to be cultivated, because that's going to keep you on the path when there's some difficulty. You say, okay, I'm understanding difficult, so I'm going to chant. You know, I'll talk to this person, and I'll pray to the deities, whatever. Otherwise, if you're on your own, then you'll have your material answers, and you'll be back in Maya. All right, I'm sorry I went over again. Does anyone have any question? Okay, we have a question or a comment.
Thank you for the class.
Haribol.
You mentioned about the determination of gopi, and my question is...
The determination of what?
Gopis.
Of the gopis. Yeah. Hold it this way. That's
and my question is, should we develop this, the same determination, and how to do it?
That's a trick question, you know. Yes, we should try to develop that same determination. They're the ideal, and you know, for two reasons. One is their attraction to Krishna is unmatched. You know, anyone who could remain attached to someone and loving someone after the years and years of separation, which is what they had, without, you know, FaceTime or anything like that, or Zoom. You know, it was all in the memory. Of course, they had relics, you know, I'm sure that they treasured, you know. But they're the epitome of the intensity and purity of the love. And it's proved by their willingness to give up everything that, you know, their good name, which is everything, you know, for a woman, and everything just to please Krishna. So we should try to cultivate that. And, you know, Prabhupada said, yes, that is, you know, I mean, he gave us the Krishna book. And the Krishna book has, you know, the five chapters of the Rasa Dance are there. Now, when I worked on the actual Bhagavatam, I saw how Prabhupada had followed so closely Vishwanath Chakravarti's explanation, you know, in the introduction. Who are these gopis? What is their quality? How did they get that way? And so forth. There's so much that. And he gave that. You read that first chapter, chapter 29 of the Krishna book, and you'll find, you know, a very thorough introduction, how it's not material, who are they, what the glories of the gopis are, and so forth. And you know. So we can read that, and we can aspire to attain that, but we have to go step in the, you know, Vishwanath Chakravarti's, I forget what it's called, but it's a step by step how to attain prema bhakti, you know, pure prema bhakti. So it's not, you know, the idea is we don't want to jump up if we're not qualified, but if we find that there's not a tinge of our, you know, sex desire developing when we read about these gopis, that's good. That's the way to do it. That you're simply revering them. And you know, and because that's Aradyo Bhagavan Vrajeshana Tadama Vrindavanam Ramya Kacharupasana. This is a famous verse. No one knows who wrote it. Isn't it? It's part of that collection of famous verses about Lord Chaitanya, I think. Chaitanya Manjusha. But it's describing Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Aradyo Bhagavan. One should worship Bhagavan. Which form of Bhagavan? Vrajeshana, you know. Tadama, and also his Dhamma, Vrindavan. Well, how should we worship it? Worship him. Ramya Kacharupasana Vrajavadu Vagena Kalpita. The examples of the gopis that we should. Well, where's the confirmation of all of this? Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam. The supreme evidence for all this is Srimad Bhagavatam. Well, what do you get from it? What's the goal anyway? Prema Pumarto Mahan. This is a very important verse. Pure love for Krishna is the ultimate goal for all human beings. And then at the end, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamadam Tatra Bharatnabhara. These are the instructions, the essential structures of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I don't know anything beyond that. So it's a very important verse. So yeah, we should learn these things. Read Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's all there, chapter 8 of the Madhya Lila. We were never told not to read that. That's the highest instruction, how to attain. You know, so what happened, I mean, and I'll just give my own experience. Okay, it's getting late. But my experience with breakfast is that it's usually not ready till 9 anyway, right? So, oh, now it's because earlier. All right. Anyway, anyone who's getting faint from hunger can leave. So back in the 70s, when the Chaitanya Charitamrita came out, and it came out all at once, you know, and it was that was the famous 17 books marathon. So I was there in the middle of it, and then when it came out and devotees started reading it, there was this one devotee, who I won't name, but he was in charge of the Spanish BBT. There was a Spanish BBT was located there also. And he started this Gopi Baba Club. He said, well, look, now we just read this CC, and especially chapter 8 of the Madhya Lila, and we'll see that our mission should be to attain this same mood as the gopis. This is the Siddhadeya of everyone, you know, who was attracted to Lord Chaitanya. You can read. So they would get together and read that, and other passages from the Antya Lila, you know, selected passages. So I just wanted to read the CC, but I was a member of the Gopi Baba Club at first, infamous Gopi Baba Club, and eventually it became too political. You know, it wasn't just reading. They would say, "Oh, we have the nectar here, but Ramaswamy, he doesn't have it." You know, these guys said, "All right, this is where I drop out." You know, luckily, so I stopped going. Eventually, Prabhupada came. This was his last trip to LA, '76. That was the last year he went on tour of the world. And his health caught up with him. So he was there, and then there was some senior. I think Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there. He probably came with Prabhupada, and they heard about this Gopi Baba Club, and then they told Prabhupada about it, and he was furious. You know that because what they were doing actually was just picking out those passages and reading them. You know, and so. Naturally, there was a meeting, which I didn't have to go to because I wasn't a member anymore, thank God. But we heard about it, and Prabhupada was livid, you know. And there was one phrase came out of this that really was the essence of what he was saying. First deserve, then desire. You know, you don't deserve to only focus on these things. You can read it, but read the whole book and read the Bhagavatam and all together, and then go. You know. So. Some devotees didn't survive that, and in fact, right after that, the colors of the books, you know, the ink of the cover of the Adi Lila was red. I think they still do it, and the printing for the Madhya Lila was blue, and then the Antya Lila was green. I think they preserved that when we condensed it. It was a 9 volume. It used to be 17 volumes. So no one would touch those green books. You know, they'd have them on their shelf, and no one would even open them. You know, I may not deserve. gradually that changed. So that's the idea, is that we, if we're truly, not experiencing any kind of lust, but to be blunt about it, when you read about these passages from the 10th canon or the Krishna book or from the CC, then don't hesitate to do it in the context of the general reading, not just to read only that, obviously. So because that's our line, that's the ultimate thing. So it's not verboten, but we have to deserve, by strict sadhana practice and cleaning our heart. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare Bol.